Welcome to Sweet Cakes by Rhonda, and today I'm going to show you how to make a fondant alligator. So there are some supplies that you're going to need. You're going to need your fondant, of course. You'll need green, white, and maybe a tan or light brown for its underbelly. You'll need a little sponge. This is one of those bristly ones that you use to wash your pots and pans. Just make sure that it's new, of course. You need some water, a decorating brush, some type of round circular cutter, an angled spatula, a marker for his eyes, or you can use black fondant, a paring knife, something to give his eyes a little, and his nostrils a little definition, scissors, a cutter, a small square, a tip, and I'm using a tip number 7, a rolling pin, your dusting pouch, and this is a petal cutter that I'm going to use for his underbelly, and then a little bit of shortening. So the first thing you need to do is spread a little shortening on your work surface so that your fondant won't stick. Take your green fondant out. And then roll your fondant out just a little bit. You want to leave it fairly thick so the body will be pretty solid, maybe about a fourth of an inch thick. So take your cutter and cut out a circular shape. Make sure you wrap your remaining fondant up. And then we're going to form his body. So what I like to do is form this back into a ball and just kind of form it really tight. Use a lot of pressure so that you don't have a lot of lines and splits in your ball. You want it to be really smooth. So now that you've got your smooth ball, you can start forming his body. And the body is like a big, long triangle is how I like to describe it. So you want to kind of stretch it out. And right now I'm working on his tail end, and I want his tail to be fairly long. And you also want it to be pointed. So you've got to work it until you form it into a point on the end. And make his body just a little wide at the top. So just roll it very gently, okay? And make sure you don't have any rough edges to it. It should be pretty smooth. Now the top part where his head is going to be attached, you want to flatten that. I like to rub it against the my work surface to give me a nice flat area to attach his head. And again, just keep on working that tail till it's as long as you want it to be. Okay. So now that you have it as long as you want, the next thing you want to do is work on his underbelly. So I'm going to get out my light brown fondant and work that until it's soft. And then I'm going to roll this one out pretty thin. So I don't need this to be really thick. Okay. So once you've got it rolled out as thin as you need it to be, take your petal cutter. Be sure to put your fondant back in case you need it again. And then I'm going to use my fingers to smooth away any of the little rough edges that are on it. And I'm going to use my rolling pin to whiten it just a little and lengthen it. Use your angled spatula to lift it off the table. And then you want to go ahead and lay it on his underbelly to make sure that it's as wide or as long as you need it to be. So you don't want to carry that color all the way down to his tail. I also like to use my spatula to kind of help me shape it as well. It's really good at catching the edges of your fondant. So once you've got it the size you want, go ahead and lift that off. Be very careful. And then brush his belly with a little bit of water. And lay this back on, pressing gently. And shape his belly. Now once you have the shape that you want, you can use your little wire bristle brush to give some definition to his underside so that it looks a little bit more real. Turn him back over, and then let's go ahead and add a little curvature to his tail before this dries. So I like to do a little whiplash effect, like he's coming up out of the water. Okay. Once you've got his body and tail shaped the way you want,
so people can see that.
Once you've got that shape the way you want, go ahead and set that aside, and then you can start working on his legs. Take out your green again. And if your area needs a little bit more shortening to prevent sticking, just make sure you brush it lightly. Roll this out. I'm going to use my square cutter, and I'm going to cut 4 squares for his legs. Setting the rest aside for his head. And just go ahead and roll that up in a ball. Then you're going to roll it out into a small tube. What you want to do is flatten one end of the tube, like so. That will be where his feet are. And the other end, you want to bend, forming like an S shape almost, or a comma. Okay, so that it looks, oops, just like this. And hopefully that's close enough for you to see. Okay. Brush this part, the hook part here, with a little water. And you are going to attach that to his body, like so. And that's going to form the first leg. Okay. And then you want to do the same thing. Small tube, flattening the end and forming your little comma shape there. Brushing it with water and attaching it to the opposite side.